Hello, hello.
Hey everyone, welcome to our first live stream. And would love to say hi in the chat, and would
Hello.
also love to hear where you're joining from. So today I have with me a very special guest, Ricardo Espinoza. Hey Ricardo.
Hello, you.
So Ricardo has been one of the most active contributors to n8n and has created more than 100 nodes. And he now works at n8n as an integrations engineer. So Ricardo, how did you discover n8n?
That's a good story. I used to check, I still check Producon every day, first thing in the morning. And I remember, watching the project, getting really excited about it. Immediately download the project, ran it locally, started using it, and it was love at first sight. Yeah, and since the project was built on Node.js and I had some experience on it, I remember creating my first node, and after that, I just couldn't stop.
Cool, that's awesome. And what was the first node that you created?
It was Mandrill, it's called, which is a MailChimp company for sending transactional emails. Yeah, that
Cool,
was
that's
like 1 year ago, almost, something like that.
that's awesome. And today you're gonna take us through the same journey of discovering n8n, building a node from the source code, and creating a node for us.
That's correct. Let's see how it goes.
Awesome. Cool. So what we did a few days ago was we did a poll, and the top two contenders for which node that we should create were Action Network and PostHog. So with Action Network, we couldn't acquire, unfortunately, the API key in time. So we're going to go with PostHog today. So hopefully we'll be able to still cover Action Network in one of the later live streams. But today we are going to build PostHog. Cool. So I'm going to share my screen, and Ricardo is going to take me through the process of creating my node for n8n. Awesome. So n8n, Ricardo, do you want to tell me a bit about the whole settings of n8n, like the workflow automation tool? Generally, what do you use it for?
Oh, that's a really good question. I guess I use it for everything. NAN empowers me to connect anything to everything. It's really good when you start using it, you start getting a grasp of it. You're gonna want to automate everything you find in your life with it.
That's
Yeah,
awesome.
it has the features that I can mention. You can keep data synced between multiple systems. You can move data from one system to another. You can even build your own backend API with it. And I like to think about it as Max, one of our coworkers, said, as API Legos. So it's really cool.
Awesome. And I see in the chat we have Shrey joining us from India. Welcome, Shrey. Great to
Oh,
have you here. Cool. Um, Now what we're going to do is go to GitHub and take a look at n8n's repository. What do you say, Ricardo?
sounds good.
Cool. So we have n8n here. So we can take a look at the structure, and I can share the link to the repository for you as well. Oh, let me share the screen again.
Yeah, it's a cracking a bit.
Perfect.
That's it clear.
Okay, so first step would be cloning the GitHub repository locally so I can build it, right?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay, so let's do that. So any specific location on my computer I should clone this?
Oh no, you can clone it wherever you want.
Okay, let's do desktop. And generally, if you are just running n8n, you can do with npx n8n, or you
Yeah,
can install it with npm, run it
that
with Docker, join n8n cloud. But since we are going to be creating a node, we need to build the source code. So we're going to be cloning it locally and building it like that. So git clone. Right. And then we go inside the directory. And what would be the next step now?
okay. n8n is built as a mono repository, So all the dependencies library that it uses are within the same repository. In order to link all those dependencies, we have to use Lerna. Uh, is an npm tool. So yeah, let's do that because that takes quite a bit.
Okay, so we can issue that command and then we can go through the file structure and
Yeah,
take a
yeah,
look at what's inside, what's under
sounds
the hood. Cool. So we do Lerna bootstrap.
yeah. Minus hoist.
Perfect. Okay, so while this is running, so this usually takes a few minutes, we can take a look at n8n's repository. So here we have different folders. So I see we have a JSON file for Lerna, this for npm, and
Yeah,
which would be the folder we'd be working in today.
yeah, we're gonna be working on, probably if you want to contribute to the project, you are gonna be working on the folder packages.
Okay.
Yeah, there you can find, the distinct different modules that n8n is built in. So you have the CLI, which is of course the CLI. There you have the REST API within the folder. um, yeah, I do. There you have the databases, the database migrations, the database structure. In the folder core, you have everything related to code, like when to activate a workflow, how to deactivate a workflow, and so on. The editor UI is everything that is in the UI, which is by the way is built on Vue.js. Node depth is a CLI that allows you to scaffold the project. We're not going to be using that today, but yeah, it is an option tool as well. It is like it creates a template where you can start working on when developing nodes. Nodes base is where you're going to be working if you want to develop a node, definitely. And workflows, yeah, it has a lot of utility functions to manipulate workflows, I would say. But you can open now nodes base and we can have a look at the structure there.
Cool. Meanwhile, let's take a look. Okay, so we got an error here.
Uh, yeah, let's do something. Do learner clean.
Okay.
Yes, yeah, because I wonder if what is in master right now is not building.
Got it. Okay. So I did a bootstrap hoist again.
Okay.
So while
Yeah,
it
let's try that. If that, yeah, okay, then let's go with the project that you already downloaded. Maybe master is not building right now, which is okay.
okay, cool. So I am gonna get the project that I had already locally before. So while I do that, would you tell us a bit about how the different nodes work? Like how are they interacting with maybe an API, and what are the different components of a node in terms of the operations, as we call in n8n, they perform, or the credentials that they have?
Yeah, basically you can have yeah, two types of nodes on NAN. We have regular nodes and trigger nodes. The trigger nodes is just start a workflow, and within the trigger nodes we have like three types or three subtypes, you call it. The ones that use a webhook API, the ones that do pulling against a REST API, and the ones that react depending on an event that happened in another system. So that will have like a queue. Imagine that you're attaching to a queue, and when you receive a message, you want to start a workflow. Um, yeah, I guess those will be like, yeah, two types and three subtypes of node that we can have.
Got it. Got it.
Just to give you an idea of what you can do with a regular node, which is what we are gonna be doing today, is pretty much anything that you can do with Node.js. But the most common use case that we have is building REST API and consuming a REST API.
Right. So while we figure out the issue with Lerna, do you maybe have and what's the best way to sort of get the repository before it errored out?
You mean get the latest changes?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So the latest master is in building right now.
yeah. That's usually not the case. I might need to check that, but yeah, I would say from master. You should check the latest changes from master.
Got it. Do you have a repository that you can send over and we take a look at?
Sure. Let me check with.
So while we received this from Ricardo, let's take a look at the packages folder again to see where the node would exist. So today, if you go in node space and inside the nodes folder, you'd see all the different nodes that exist in n8n. So you see we have active campaign, activity scheduling, and so on. So inside these, you have different files, and like some of these files we'll be creating today. So as you can see, like active campaign is a rather huge node with a lot of different operations and resources. Um, but one thing that is within all the nodes is a file which is the brand name .node.ts, and that contains all the settings of the node, like the default name that's going to show up, the logo, and so on. And other than that, we have usually this file called generic functions.ts, which gets the details of the credentials and basically handles sending the REST request to the REST API of that particular service. Other than that, we have a logo file, which is either in PNG. So I think, Ricardo, SVG is the best practice here, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I would recommend going with the SVG when you can, because you don't have to care about the size. A
Got it.
couple of places where you can find good SVGs. Usually, the company that you're creating the node for, they have a section on their website. It's called either branding or press, and usually you can find them there. If not, we sometimes use a web page called vecta.io. It's a really good resource, and there is a couple of GitHub repositories that have a good amount of SVG nodes. Yeah, I think we can try again, Tanay. Just do chip checkout to the Demio. Remember the node we created yesterday?
Right.
Or a couple of weeks ago, a couple of days ago? Yeah, do check
Yep.
out the Demio and then do Lerna there.
So we go in the desktop folder again, and then we
Git,
would be checking out a certain branch, right? Is
Git
that correct?
checkout. Git checkout. Demio, I believe it's called it too.
So
Oh,
git
no,
clone.
okay. But you already have it cloned, so you can just go CD on there and that's it.
Ah, got it. So in that case, I would then do a git checkout.
Exactly.
But generally, this would be master.
Yeah,
Is that
that's
correct?
correct. Okay,
Okay.
do Lerna clean. Yes. And then do the Lerna, bootstrap minus hoist.
Right. So while this builds, um, what would you recommend in terms of when an SVG for a certain node is not available, and we have to use PNG? Uh, would you What are some things that have to be kept in mind? Like, does it need to be certain size? Should we somehow compress it? What are the best
Yeah,
practices?
that's correct. You have to be 60 by 60 pixels, and you have to be compressed. The website that we usually use to compress the PNG logos is it tinypng.com, I believe is the name.
Yeah.
Let me share that link with. Okay.
So,
Still no building?
and we are joined by Jan from the UK. Hey, Jan, great to have you in the show. So,
Okay.
Ricardo, the
Yeah.
Lerna bootstrap didn't work here either. What would be the next step to
Okay. Let me.
proceed?
What about do something? What about if I share my screen?
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay. Give me a second. Okay.
So, TinyPNG is a website you mentioned for compressing the website,
Yeah.
compressing the logo of the.
Okay. Give me a second. That's correct. Let me a sec.
So I'm gonna add it as a banner down there. And another great website that I found for getting the logos for and the branding colors as well, because we do include brand colors in the logos too, is brandfetch.com.
Okay.
So it's a good website for getting the logos, and then you can resize them and use them in the notes as well.
Yeah. Sometimes I just go find them on Google Images. That's a good place to find those as well.
So
Okay.
maybe yeah, just the company name and logo, and maybe add Square, so it shows up there.
Okay. Cherry. Why now? Give me a sec. Okay. Sure. Share. Share screen. Share screen. Perhaps this one right here. Can you see it?
Yes. Can you zoom in a bit?
Oh, I think it's beautiful. Oh.
So you're using VS Code. Is that something that you'd recommend using while building nodes for n8n?
Yes, of course. You can use any editor you want, but I would recommend this one. Can you see it better now?
I'd say one more zoom. Let us know in the comments if you're unable to read as well. So in that case, we can increase the zoom amount.
What about
I'd
now?
say I'd say one more time.
One more?
Yeah, one more. Perfect.
Okay. Then yeah, let's do what you did already. Learn and clean, and then learn a bootstrap minus hoist. Oops.
Okay, perfect. The
Uh,
zoom level is good.
yes. Building shouldn't take a long time on the computer.
So while it builds, perhaps we can talk a bit about PostHog, because like that's one of the services that we picked up and we built a node for today.
Okay, got it. Yeah, let me.
So I can share my screen on that as well.
Okay.
So yeah, like this is PostHog, and it's an open source product analytics tool. You can build dashboards with it, visualize analytics, and so on. And it has, I think, a couple of different offerings. So I already went ahead and create an account on their cloud offering, and you can also, I think, run it on Docker, run it self-hosted. So I imagine like we'll need to have a setting in the node to account for the fact that people might be using it on the cloud, but maybe they are running it locally. And other than that, they seem to have great API documentation as well. So we'd be using the documentation on the REST API to sort of build out the functionalities. So yeah, I was looking at the docs, Ricardo, and it seems they have a couple of different. I wanted to call it elements, but since they have a thing called elements here, different resources as we call them in n8n. So we have elements, events, people, trends, users. So what do you think would be a good use case for us to create today?
Yeah, the best use case I would say is to send in events to the tool to PostHub.
Perfect. Then we can see in the dashboard is how it renders out and how
Yeah, yeah,
somebody using that in a workflow would look like. Perfect.
yeah. That's correct.
Right.
Yeah, I
And we
mean,
will,
having a bunch
yeah,
of events that you have in the data in your database, and then sending them to PostHub.
perfect. So I'm gonna pass over the control of the screen back to you.
Okay, so yeah, learner finishes, and then the first thing that we have to do every time we want to create a node is create a folder within the node folder. So
So
let's
this
go.
is in
Yeah, this is within,
packages, node space, and then
yeah, this
nodes.
is within packages, node space, and then nodes.
Perfect.
So let's go ahead and do that.
And what's the style guide? Like, what are the best practices in terms of naming a node? Like, I see that we are probably following the branding of the tools. Like, I see with Active Campaign, C is capitalized, and so on. Um, so, what's the how should a folder be named for a particular node?
Yeah, it should be all folders that you can see follow the Pascal case format.
Got it. And in case like we have Airtable, for instance, which doesn't have Pascal case, so it would just be first letters
Yeah,
capitalized.
exactly.
Okay,
Yeah, I guess passive K will apply in case there are two words instead of just one.
got it. So there wouldn't be a
Okay,
space in the name
so
of the folder.
that's correct. That's correct. That wouldn't be allowed. So once we create the folder, now we need to have like a file. A file has the same structure, well, a bit similar structure than the folder is the folder name plus dot no plus dot ts. As you can see, if I open other nodes, all of them follow the same. This one is not the best example. The best example follow the same structure.
So the name of the node .node.ts.
That's
Got
correct. That what I usually do is just copy and to start creating the scaffolding of the node. I just go and create find for another node that has a similar functionality to the one that we're gonna be creating, and
Ricardo, are you still there?
right here. Is
Oh,
it too
Ricardo is
big for
back.
you?
Sorry, you cut off when you were mentioning about the scaffolding.
Oh, I'm sorry about that. Yeah, that what we usually do when once we have the file, what I usually do is I go and look for another node that had a similar functionality to the one that we're gonna be creating, and copy paste that here and start working on top of that.
Got it.
So
And
I'm
would you
gonna use
say
this one.
some of the nodes, for instance, have way more functionality than other because maybe they have a more extensive REST API, or maybe they are just older nodes which have been like fully built out. Um, would you say some nodes are better as compared to others in terms of copying the initial scaffolding from, or would it depend on the
Yeah,
functionality?
yeah, I would say. I mean, yeah, if you're gonna be consuming a REST API, probably I'm gonna copy from a node that also consumes a REST API, which
Got it.
is most of our cases, to be honest.
Yeah,
So yeah, run a profit well, I know it's consuming a REST API, so that's the reason why I'm gonna be copy from there.
perfect.
Okay, copy here, paste it here. Okay, it looks way bigger than it looks on the screen right here.
Okay,
Okay.
so once we copy this, I see we have a lot of different options. Could we maybe go from the top to bottom in terms of what are we doing for the different pieces of code
Yeah, I mean,
and what's going on?
yeah, all the nodes uh, is basically a class, and that class implements another type. It just means that you have to define or conform to all these properties in order for the node to work. Uh, Usually, the properties that are on the descriptions are the ones that would affect how the node will look on the UI. For example, let me see real quick. I don't have it running right now, but do you have it running locally?
Sorry?
Yeah, let me test something real quick.
Do you want me to show the
Oh
Profitware
no,
node?
no, no, I have it right here. Okay, if I share my screen with you.
And n8n would be running on the 5678 port of localhost,
Yeah,
as
for
you
example,
explained to me.
I'm gonna give you an example. Once the node is load, you're gonna find it here on the right menu, and you're gonna, of course, you can add it to the editor UI. So what you can see here is what is defined here on the file that I was trying to show you. For example, if you have the display name is what you find here.
Hmm.
The logo, of course, is the logo that is add when you add the node to editor UI, and what is shown here on the right menu. The subtitle is what you're gonna see right below the name.
Hmm.
We have the name of the node, which is this one right here, which by the way is different than the one that it is on the menu, and the color, which is probably you can see the outline here, is that color that you can see there.
And this is the brand color that you mentioned that we
Yeah,
use.
that's
Okay,
correct, Branco. That usually is so, well, you can either inspect the color of the logo, or that's usually also an info that you can find on the company's website.
got it.
So I guess, yeah, let's do that. Let's make it show in the UI first.
And the pieces of code that you're commenting right now, these were specific to the node that you copied the code from.
Not really. I just want the warning right now because we're not gonna be using that right now.
Okay.
But yeah, we will get there. So yeah, let's just start adding our node data. Just change the class name to what it should be, which is the node's name. Let's do here as well.
Can the display name and the class name be different?
Uh, mm, the class name, yeah, the class name has to match the the name that you have on the folder. The display name can be
Ah, of
different.
course.
Yeah, but I don't think we've ever done that. It should match.
Perfect.
Okay, the name.
And I noticed that in the name you have P small. So is that something that's done with all the names?
Yeah, that's correct. That's a standard. Here we use camel case instead.
Okay.
So I don't have the logo right now on me, but I don't have the logo right now, but I'm gonna add it in a bit. We're gonna be consuming the post.
I can send the logo over to you.
Okay, PostHog API. Did you send?
I hear you received it.
Yeah, give me a second.
Okay, so I just also got a message from Jan, our founder and CEO. So he mentioned that this is probably the issue that I faced is probably because of the Node.js version. So
I
maybe
didn't
that
try.
is something to keep an eye on is that you're using updated Node.js version, which might be the case here. I'm not sure when I updated mine last time. So thanks, Jan.
Yeah, that's why I recommend using NVM because you can control the version that you have pre-equipped with the CLI.
Got it.
Okay.
And I just sent over an SVG logo of PostHog to Ricardo. So we can use that for the node.
Okay, almost there. Uh,
So would you be pasting the file in the folder now?
yeah, that's correct. You are about to see that. Yeah, here you have it.
Perfect.
And here, On icon, the icon property, you can see how I reference the logo right here.
So we can do the PNG or SVG,
Yeah,
and the naming scheme is similar to the name of the node that you
yeah,
have in the name
exactly.
area.
Follows the same of the property name. The only thing is you have to add the file dot before the name. And make sure that you always, have the extension.
Perfect.
Okay, so okay, I'm gonna be commenting this. It's not needed right now. Uh, since okay, what we have in property is what you are gonna see when you double click on the node. If I go to active campaign right here, when I open it, this right here,
Hmm.
everything you can see here is what we define within properties. A, n8n uses like has a pre-built UI elements
Hmm.
where you can use to ask the customer for different type of information, whether it is a string, a number, uh, yeah, date, color, and we have a couple more. So I guess our next step right now will be to build our UI. If you can use,
So I
okay,
had a question. In n8n, there is a resource, there is an operation, and then there's different fields. So the highest level thing is resource. So let's say we took a look at PostHog's documentation, which I can bring up on the screen now. Um, so we have a couple of different things here, like elements, events, people. So these would be translating to resources in n8n, and things within that, like listing events, creating an event, basically CRUD operations. Those would essentially be operations. And then the things that we need to send off to the endpoint would be fields for that. Is that correct?
yeah, is that correct? Usually, the if you are building a node for a REST API, the resource that the REST API, if you're familiar with REST API, is the resource that you're gonna use here. That's
Got it.
usually the case. And the operations, yeah, the CRUD operations: create, delete, get all, and update. Uh, yeah, you might find sometimes something different, and this is the case of PostHub. They have, instead of event create, they have something event.
Let's take a look
Yeah, let's take
at.
a look. I don't remember the.
So they have list trends.
Okay,
So we can get uh, events here, and then we can specify properties as well.
yeah, that's correct.
Okay.
Go to, I guess you can into the event, post event. It must be around there.
Okay. So this is an example response. So example request would be.
Yeah, it is not quite that one. You have to scroll a bit more.
Okay. Was it a different page?
Uh, maybe. Oh, go to post only public endpoints. Okay, go to scroll a bit.
Okay. We have a whole list of other endpoints
Mm-hmm.
here.
Yeah,
Sending
single
event.
error. Yeah, it's that one.
So here we see it's like a post request. And here we'd have to specify whether we are using the cloud, or running it, or self-hosting it. So API key we generate from our account, and okay, these are the details for which we need to have fields. So maybe events is a resource. Send single event could be an operation, and these would be so this probably would go in the credentials part of the UI.
Yeah, that's correct. We're getting.
Um, Maybe the instance name as well.
Yeah, that's correct. We're gonna need the instant name and the API key for the credentials.
And depending on, it seems like the event and properties we have to provide, and timestamp seems to be an optional
Yeah,
parameter.
just correct. Well, I think even name and properties are required. The only thing that is optional is the timestamp.
Perfect.
So yeah,
Cool.
we basically we're gonna build the UI that we need so the user can provide these fields to the node.
Perfect. So this is the functionality that we'll be implementing in the post node today.
Yes, that's correct. We're gonna
Cool.
be, yeah, they call it capture an event. We're gonna do even create an event just to keep it a bit standard with what the other nodes do. We usually use, create, update, get all on update.
Perfect. Before we move on, I see we have another question in the stream from Teflon Dude. So he asks, would I be correct in assuming that SVG files are preferred over PNG files for icons since the SVG files are vector based and have infinite resolution?
Oh well, that's an amazing question that probably Max have an answer for.
Okay. Perfect. And I think another good thing about these icons is like these, if you zoom in to the editor UI, they would still show nicely, and maybe the PNG files
Oh, good. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I got it now. I guess I
get
misunderstood
pixelated.
what he said. Yeah, actually, yeah, it would look way better. Mostly, if you have a high resolution screen, you probably are gonna know the difference. That's why I always try to go with the SVG version.
Perfect. And we recommend that SVG be used if it can be instead of PNG.
Yeah, yeah. Actually, we're on the process because at the beginning we didn't have support for SVGs, just PNGs, and we are on the process of uh, moving all the PNG logos to SVGs.
Perfect. Makes sense. Cool. Um, then back to you. Let's create this functionality. So first of all, uh, would we be looking at, okay, how do we just get the node there with maybe no functionality, no resources, just PostHog showing up in n8n? Is that it?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay.
That's
Okay.
correct. Okay. Okay. Let's then make this. Let's make the node show on the UI, and then we will go and create the parameters for it. I'm gonna be commenting things in the meantime because we don't need it just yet. Okay, if I build this, if I run the project right now with this node, we still we're not gonna be able to find it on the menu. So, hence, you're not gonna be able to add it to the editor UI. What did In order to do that, we need to register the node. We have to tell n8n that he needs to load that node. This is actually one of the common mistakes that I usually see. To do that, we have to the nodes base node nodes base folder. Okay, within there you're gonna find a package.json file,
Mhm.
and within that file, forget about it. This now you have a property called nodes on the right. You just have to add it there.
So it
So
lists all the nodes that show up in the editor UI
yeah,
of
yeah,
n8n.
yeah, yeah, yeah. If I remove all these lines in here, they are not gonna show up on the UI.
Okay. We don't want that to happen.
Yeah, that has happened quite a lot, to be honest. Actually, that's we always get that question in the community.
Got it. So
Okay,
is there
let's
any good practice when adding a new node here?
yeah, we just add them alphabetically
Okay,
usually.
perfect.
So that should be. Oh, I'm sorry about that.
No worries.
Okay, let's do that quick. They usually follow the same pattern. Here will be the folder, and here the name of the file.
And I noticed that it says here node name dot node.js instead of ts. Is it because of how n8n gets built when you compile the code?
Yeah, that's correct because you're referencing the JS code that was transpiled.
Okay.
That's good that you mentioned that because right now we're gonna build the project. So we're gonna do npm run build. This is probably just gonna be needed the first time that you download the project.
And
Or if you're switching between branch.
okay. And Lerna bootstrap hoist, so that needs to be done only once.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So, I mean, if you don't know the project, you do it once, you do the node. But if you change branches and the library's version changes, then you're gonna have to be doing Lerna again.
Okay. How long
So,
does the process of
uh,
npm run build usually take?
yeah, it takes a bit. I guess it's gonna depend on your computer, but I would say take a couple of minutes. It's
Okay.
almost done though. Okay. The other, okay, the project is built. Now we have to run the project on test mode, and we do npm run dev. Uh, okay, takes a bit.
And now, since we added the name of the node on just like the line with this nodes, PostHog, posthog.node.js, this would show up in the editor UI now when you open it.
Yeah, on the startup, n8n will read this file and it will start loading all the files that are listed on this array. As you can see, if I refresh now, you can see that here is the node.
Oh, perfect.
Even added to the editor UI. Now it shows it's fine. Now, as I mentioned, we still do not have any UI within the node. If you double click on it, you will see that this is empty.
Mhm.
And that's what we're gonna build now. We're gonna add the parameters that the user need to provide in order to, achieve the operation, which is creating an event.
Perfect.
So
So what do we
that
start with now?
yeah, that's when as I was mentioning, give me a second, the properties array comes into play. There is a bunch of UI elements that you can use, as I mentioned before. Um, all of them follow the same structure. What I mean by that is all of them have, display name, name type, and depending on the type, you can have extra options. But most of them are pretty much the same. As we mentioned before, probably if your node is consuming a REST API, it's always gonna have a resource and an operation. This is not required, but this
Mhm.
is like a standard that we have within the company. Actually, if you check all the other nodes, you're probably ain't gonna find that all of them have resource operations. Organizing the functionality that way, we can ensure that all the functionality is highly findable by the user, because sometimes they can have quite some operations and quite some resources. So okay, our resource we said will be an event.
So I remember that
Uh,
we took a look at PostHog and it said events. So is that something that we do in n8n? Like, should the resources always be singular?
oh yeah, that's correct. Glad that you mentioned.
Okay.
All resources and all operations are always singular.
So let's say if we are doing a CRM and it has a resource like contacts or companies. So when building a node for that, we have to name the resource, contact, company, and so on.
Yeah, that's correct. That's
Okay.
correct. And we are
And
gonna
default is the one that would be selected when
yeah,
you boot up the node for the first time.
yeah,
Okay.
that's correct. When you open the node and any is looking for what to render, and it renders that file, that field, you're gonna see that the default is gonna be selected. I mean, if it exists within the options.
Perfect.
Okay, then our second required standard file is operations, singular as well. And in our example, this will be create. We set it as a default as well.
Mhm.
And yes, and now I guess you can let me know, since you have there, what are the other fields that we need in order to create an event. I remember that one was event name.
Okay, let's take a quick look at what the documentation says. So
Okay.
I've added that up. So we have event, one called event, where we enter the event name. Um, then we have properties, which have a couple of things like distinct ID and then key value pairs. And then we have another optional item, optional field called timestamp.
Okay, perfect.
Okay,
Okay,
switching back to
let's
your screen.
okay, let's do that. We have, as I mentioned before, we have a bunch of types. If you go here, you can see all the types that we have: Boolean, collection, color, data, text collection, JSON, multi-auctions, number auctions. So everything you need probably is already built in here. So, event name is just as a string. We're gonna use the string type.
Mhm. And does I see like you have called it event name here, and this is um, in camel case. So the REST API asked for event, so it doesn't have to be named in the same way. Okay,
No, no, exactly. I mean, later you're gonna see how we can reference that name on when the node is executed, and then you assign it to something different before sending the request.
perfect.
Okay, this is not needed because this is just for options. Our default will be empty, and then yeah, to do the event name. Okay, this is of course is required. I mean, this field right here is very important. If it is requires, the node won't let you execute it until that field is filled. So since we need the event name in order to create an event, then I made it required. Okay, the other field you mentioned was
So now let me bring it up. We have properties. So this looks like an object which has distinct ID, which is your
Mhm.
user's distinct ID, and then couple of key value pairs.
Yeah, I'm gonna add it outside the object, but probably it's gonna make sense. It's gonna make sense later. It's gonna be-
Okay. And I guess like you can get data in a way from the users of the node in the most convenient way for them, and then you can always restructure it when sending it to the REST
Yeah,
API.
exactly. That's exactly what we're doing here. It doesn't have to exactly match the shape of the UI, the shape of the UI of the REST API, because
Mhm.
we can later map that data to something that the REST API understands.
I see a small typo with the name distinct ID.
Oh, here. One second. Can
And
you see?
all the variables in n8n are going to be named in camel case.
Can you share with me the link of the API real quick?
The link of the API, sure. There you go. In case you're wondering, I can also add a link at the bottom if you'd like to take a look at what the endpoint of PostHog looks like. And we're going to be using that for building up the UI.
Okay, this is better.
And meanwhile, if you have any questions, for those of you listening, please feel free to enter them in the chat, and we'd love to answer those.
Okay, we have the distinct ID. The other thing that we need are properties. Let's add that now. To add properties, since it is an object that we have to do key value pairs, we have to use another UI element. It's called text collection. Let me show you.
And let's say if we are building some other node and we need Boolean type, just as an example, or we need a certain element type, but we don't know what it's called in n8n. I know we are working on a guide for that for the doc so that you can get that detail. But meanwhile, like, what's a quick way inside the editor to get that information?
Yeah, I mean, you can just go to the type properties, inspection it, and then you could see all the types that we have. You can also score, see the component that you're interested in other node, and then inspect the code and just copy from there. Like, which is
Right.
literally what I'm doing right now. I'm just gonna copy this fixed collection from here.
Perfect. That's a quick way to then prototype and check how things look.
Yeah, let's do this. Why is going there? Oh, probably because it doesn't have a default. Maybe. Yeah, that's okay. Okay, let's call our fixed collection. As it should be called. Properties. Properties.
I see another question coming in. Do we use tabs or do we use spaces?
Oh, we use tabs. That's the standard.
Tabs. Perfect.
Yeah, actually, you can see here down here that I haven't set it to full. And we have dot editor config file that I believe you can add to any editor, and in automatic. I mean, if you load it, it will automatically make sure that you are using tab instead of sizes, instead
Cool.
of spaces. Okay.
So now we are doing fixed collection. So what does this actually look like? Because I think like string is explanatory in terms of it's going to be a field where we can
Oh yeah, I can
enter.
show you an example of a fit collection. No, not. Let me say maybe it's another.
Is it similar to what we have in the set node?
Let me see. It's like, yeah, actually, that's what it will allow me to somehow isolate that property. We're gonna have an object, and then it will separate the properties from the main parent. So in this case, this will be the properties, and here we will have name and key. Sorry, key and value, and
So we
then
can set
yeah, the user
different
can
data.
add as many as they want. So yeah, I mean, I guess it's gonna look better when I finish this property. This is gonna be description. You can set this to just be able to set one value or to set multiple values. If you
So
set
if
it to if you set it to not set multiple values, then you wouldn't be able to add more than one.
okay,
If that makes sense.
yeah, but here I think the REST API allows us to send couple of key value pairs. So we put type options to multiple values true.
Key property value. Okay, I think we are all set here. And the last field is, if I remember correctly, is timestamp, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, since timestamp is not required, we're gonna use a different type as well. It's called additional fields, and you can see how it will look here. We, as an standard, we always want just to show the users the fields that are required, and the ones that are optional, you can always use a collection, and they will be nicely hidden here. So you do not overwhelm the user with a bunch of parameters. Maybe this is not the best example, but if you go to something like Salesforce that have maybe to add a link, you have just the email and the first name, but you have like 1,000 optional fields, then this start to make sense. So let's do that.
So rule of thumb when creating nodes, the things that are required for the API to give back a response, they should be beneath the resources and options, and everything else that is optional goes in the additional field section.
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay.
That's correct. As I did with the fixed collection, I'm gonna get it from another node. Yeah, this is
And
usually um,
Why do you look for additional fields so that you can copy? Ah, okay.
Oh,
So
yeah,
similar
because
format.
yeah, exactly. Usually the collections all call additional fields. That's what I was looking for. That mean.
Perfect. That's handy.
So it is. Okay, then here we have timestamp, and we have type to provide dates. Mistake time. We're covered there. Then cover timestamp. Okay, now let's see how this looks now. Every time you make changes to the UI, you have to run the npm run def again. So I'm gonna kill the project here. I'm gonna do npm run def again.
So it's going to rebuild the UI.
Uh, Actually, the UI is been building every time I save. That's transpile is being built. The problem is that n8n load the latest changes on the start, so I have to start n8n again. So those changes are reflected on the UI.
Got it.
Okay, refresh. If I open the node, you can see that we have everything we need right now. We have the M name. Here you can see the description that we said there. The distinct ID, the properties. Now you can add a bunch of properties.
Oh, wow.
And
Perfect.
under additional fields, you have, the timestamp that is optional.
And we didn't write the code for this calendar pop-up to come by. So is it because it's because of the pre-built UI elements?
Yeah, that's correct. That comes out of the box.
Awesome. And it
Okay.
gives it won't let us execute the node because we haven't filled out the required fields yet.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, here is you can see the error around here. I try to execute it. It's gonna tell
Mhm.
me which parameters had to be set in order to be able to run the node. So I guess we're still missing two more parameters in order to make the pull request and the HTTP request, and that's the API key, the URL, right?
Yes, and I'm bringing it up to my screen. Um, One thing that we are missing right now is distinct ID as well. It's inside properties, so would that be something that we need to add as well?
Oh yeah, we're gonna be mapping that out before making the request.
Perfect.
So okay, let's do add the credential. Every sensitive information that you need to store, like API keys, it is handled by credentials within n8n. Within the credentials, you can ask the user for these credentials, and they are gonna be stored on the data encrypted on the database. So you don't have to worry about them being you know locked within in.
And
So
these go by default in an n8n SQLite database.
yeah, that's correct by default. Unless you define on the environment variables, you change the database, it's gonna be default always SQLite. So to add a credential, we go to the same folder, notes base,
Which is
and
inside packages, right?
yeah, that's correct, inside packages, and there is another folder called credentials. We create a new folder. We use the same name that we use for the node.
So PostHog. And we added the APIs. Is that something that we add to all of them?
Yeah, as you can see, that you're gonna find there all over the place because probably most APIs use an API key. Yeah,
Perfect.
I'm just gonna copy the code from. Oops, I'm gonna copy the code from here. I'm gonna add it
Okay,
here.
so this is a much smaller file because not so many options that need to be entered, I guess.
Yeah, and usually there is just one field here, which is the API key. That's the most common case. So as you can see, it's
And
way.
if we, I have a question. So if we were building just, I mean, just as an example, only for post hoc cloud, then we would need only API key as well. But since we want to generalize it for people maybe who are self-hosting, we'd ask for two options here.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
We're gonna, yeah, as you can see, this is quite similar to what we do with the node. We just
Mhm.
name it. This is the name we're gonna use to reference those credentials within the node. So it has to be. Oh, oops.
So it's the same as the name of the class, but in
Yeah,
Snake.
exactly.
Snake case.
Yeah, here this is the display name. You're gonna see what's that about in a bit.
And what's this documentation URL?
Oh, okay. This is gonna point to the n8n docs. Probably I'm gonna show it to you right here. So when you create the credentials and you don't have where to find them, and you open, let me show you, for example, in the channel. You want to add credentials and you don't know where, for example, I find this access token, you can open right here, and that's the direction of the node in the docs, and it would give you detailed instructions on how to get those credentials.
Perfect.
So where was I? Okay, I'm gonna omit this in the meantime, but yeah, this should be included.
And just in case somebody's curious around where the code for the documentation lives, it is also on GitHub.
Yeah, that's correct. We have another repo for that. Perhaps you can share the.
I will. And here we have the repository for the documentation.
Okay, this is we have API field, and now we need one more field to ask the user, which is the URL.
And
And
these both are strings.
yeah, that's correct. As you can see, you here can use the same UI elements that you can use within the node, though all of them are available down here. And now we have to reference to tell n8n to load these credentials as well, which is quite similar to what we did with the nodes. Actually, you go to the same file with the node space. It is the packet.json. Oops.
So node
Oh,
space package.json. Okay.
that's
Same file where we added the
yeah.
node.
Instead of registering in the nodes array, you do it on the credentials.
And we call it registering a credential or registering a node.
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay. Cool.
You can still define it, but if you don't add it here, it's not gonna show up on the UI.
And these are the only two things that have to be added to package.json for things to show up in the UI, right?
Yeah.
Or is there anything else that needs to be added in this file?
No, right? Just notes and credentials. In case that you need to use a custom npm package for some reason, you can if you want to have access to that package within Node, then you have to add it here as well as a dependency.
Got it.
But
And
yeah,
generally, we
for
try
most
to
case,
to REST APIs to not bloat up the package
yeah,
dependencies. Right?
yeah, that's what I was about to mention. Usually, you should have everything you need within the node. We try to avoid as much as we can dependencies. Okay, I'm gonna add it right. No, oops. Credentials, where are you? Okay, I'm
And
gonna
this
add
would
it
be
right.
alphabetical as well.
Yeah, I'm not following the rule right now, but yeah, it should be like that.
Okay. Do as we say, not do as we do.
Okay, and now we go to the node, and basically we just tell n8n that this node has access to that credential type. So
Okay.
remember the name that we have here is the name that we're gonna use here.
Okay, so now since you call it PostHog API, this node wouldn't have access to, like earlier it was
Yeah,
Profitwell, for instance. So it
yeah,
just has
that's good.
access to that
Yeah,
credentials.
that's a
Okay,
way to, I would say, link them. Yeah.
perfect.
Okay, now I close here, kill the process, run it again.
And do you already have instance of PostHog running, or are you going to use cloud, or are you going to use it? Are you going to
I,
run it locally?
I probably gonna use cloud. Actually, you can share your credentials.
Perfect. Okay, I can share my screen now. So, as I mentioned, I already went ahead before the live stream and created a cloud account for PostHog. So, this is what it looks like. And I haven't created anything else other than what was present by default. So, I took a look at the API on their website, on their documentation, and it seems that we need to get personal API key. So, clicked on it, and like they have pretty good description. That's always great to see in documentations. It's like where to find the API key. So we'd go to uh, my accounts, personal API key. Then you have to give it a name. Let's call it n8n. And I'm gonna take myself off the stream for now so that uh, this stays private. So I clicked on the create key button, and I can then
Yeah,
copy it
okay.
over, and I'm gonna send it
Yeah, I
to.
think actually I have ones right here, so I don't think.
Okay,
Okay. I'll go. Yes, so I run the project on dev mode again. I came here, we refresh. As you can see, when I open here, now this section credentials open shows up.
perfect.
You can have multiple post accounts attached to the same node. So if you go to create new, you're gonna see the two parameters that we have, which are URL and API key. I already have one here.
And let's say we are using the cloud, what would be the
Okay,
URL?
yeah, but it's gonna depend. I guess it's gonna be the host name, the host direction of the server where you deploy the
For
virtual host.
PostHog Cloud, what is the URL by default?
That's a good question. It must be on the docs. I have it right.
Okay, let's see.
I mean,
So it's
I don't want to open it
HTTPS
because
app. It's HTTPS apps dot app.posthog.com. So assuming that some people might be trying out the cloud version, should that be put as default, and
yeah,
people can
actually,
change it?
yeah, that's a good point. Let's
I'm
do
gonna
that.
send a URL of this to you.
Oops. Where's the code? Okay. Yeah, you can set a default file placeholder. Okay, can you share with me here? It is. Okay, just add it as a default. Run it again.
And would this affect existing API keys as well?
Yes, that's
Or
good.
okay. I mean, if they
Yeah,
exist, the value probably has been set to them. So, what I guess.
okay. If I go, I refresh, and if I go now it's set by default.
Okay. Perfect.
Yeah, of course, you have to set your API key. I think I have it set already. Do it here, so we will check that in a bit. So I guess we are fully done with the UI. Now we have to take this data and make the actual HTTP request.
Right.
Okay, let's go to do that. We'll go to the node.
Which in the case of event creation is a post request.
Yeah, that's correct. So let me delete this because it's not gonna be near to the. Yeah,
I'm gonna, while you clean this up, I'm gonna quickly share my screen. So on their documentation, they actually say this. It's like HTTPS yourinstance.com. So this would be the URL. Like if you're self-hosting, that you'd have to enter in the URL field, and these would be the endpoints, but we'll define it later on. Okay, Ricardo, back to you. So what are we doing right now?
Okay, and just setting the scaffolding for the execute method. The execute method is the one that is gonna be executed when you execute the node. So okay, to make the HTTP request, let's first make a function. We usually have a file called within the node folder called generic functions, and then there are you can have a bunch of helpers.
So it's
Uh,
always called generic functions in all the files.
yeah, I mean it's not necessarily has to be that name can be any name, but we usually use generic functions. If you open all the other nodes, you're gonna see that.
And we can copy paste code from them and just
Yeah,
tweak it all
exactly.
to the specific API.
Yeah, as long
Cool.
as it is REST API, yeah, the generic function should be pretty similar because all of them and just doing an HTTP request.
Perfect.
Oops, I think it copied one thing. Okay, no, this is okay. This is not needed because this is for the trigger. So, yeah, when consuming a REST API, which is what we are doing right now, we usually have one method, which is API request, and just pass a couple of parameters. Uh, the method, in this case, will be post. The endpoint, in this case, will be slash event. And the data we have to either send on the body or on the query. This one doesn't have query, but it's okay because we don't need it right now. So let's start changing, adjusting this for or no.
And I noticed, like we already have some headers set here from the node that you copied it from. So,
Yeah, probably
um,
this a couple of these are not gonna be needed. We're gonna chat in a bit.
so I'm gonna open up. I can share my screen. Let's take a look at the documentation. So it seems there's a couple of ways to send the API. So if we look at the API overview under authentication, we can either send it as a header with like do a bearer authentication, or we could put it in the request body, but we could also put it in the query string. So they do offer like a couple of options here. So what should we go with? Does it matter?
Yeah, I guess I'm gonna go. You can use either, but I'm gonna go with the body version.
Okay. So
So
that goes in the body, and I see like perfect. They used to have a username and password way of authenticating as well, but that's deprecated now. Okay, I'm gonna give it over to you.
okay, yes, I guess then in the header, the only thing that we need is the content type. It's shown in example. The URL would be what we did. Oh, okay, something that I forgot to mention. We have um, a bunch of utility functions to make all sort of things within nodes. For example, access the credential that the user provide. That probably you're gonna need to consume to consume the REST API. Also, we have helpers that let you make the HTTP request. So this is all handled for you.
Got it.
But right here, I'm just referencing the credentials. That keep in mind that this is, as you can see, this is the same name that I use. Let's see here.
Yeah.
It is
And also
completely
the credentials file, right?
yeah, exactly. Those three have to match, and here that response will give me the credentials that the user input. So since I have access to here to the URL,
So that okay,
this will be
credentials.url.
yeah,
And okay.
yeah, and
So in
just
the other one
uh,
it was string because there was Oh, okay, no, it has to be a data object because there could be a couple of things.
Yeah, and here will be slash whatever the person sent on the endpoint. This is just literally, assembling the URL, which will be the base plus whatever we pass in the parameters. In this case, will be slash event. So the method is coming from the parameters. We're okay here. And then just changing the name.
Okay, I'm gonna quickly pop over to the documentation. So here we see we have this sorted out for assembling the URL because Ricardo already is getting this information from the credentials file. This slash capture is going to be the endpoint that we are going to define later on. In the header, he has mentioned content type application JSON, and all this other data we are getting from the UI of n8n. So we pretty much have the bits and pieces ready to send it off to the API.
Yeah, that's right. Everything seems to be okay with our function. Okay. Ooh, okay. Just make sure that everything is okay. We import a helper here.
And did we also send the API key in the body?
Oh, yeah, good point. Yeah, I think I forgot that. That we do whatever the user said plus the. Can you show again how is the property name? I think it's API key, right?
Um, I'm not sure. We better check. Okay, you mentioned in the body. Yes, you're right. API underscore key.
Yeah. Okay. So now it should be done here. Now we have to import this function on the node, so we're able to use it. Now we should be able to make an HTTP request from the node. Okay, the first thing that we have to do now is grab the parameters that the user defined in the UI. There is a helper function to get these parameters called get no parameter.
So I have a question for you here. So we see a couple of things defined in the execute. So you mentioned like this is a method that we need to run the node.
Mm-hmm.
So I see we have items. That defines the data that the user enters in the UI.
No, items is the input data that is coming to the node.
Ah, okay. Then okay, so if there's data that already exists in the workflow that's getting inside the node, and maybe the
Yeah,
node
I
acts on
mean,
it.
if you have a node right before the the backup node, then you're gonna be able to access the data that node outputted here within the execute function.
Got it. And then we have resource. So for resource, I see that
Yeah, I
you
mean,
mentioned like you're getting the zeroth object.
yeah. Actually, I didn't went. I had this scaffolding right here because it's pretty much what you're gonna find with creating an API node. Uh, yeah, if you go to the other nodes, it pretty much have the same structure. You always grab the resource on the operation and then iterate over all items. We're iterating over all items because we're gonna make the HTTP request for as many items this node gets. For example, if I have, I don't know, a MySQL node, a database node before this one, and if you do a get all that retrieve, I don't know, 10 persons, okay, 10 people, you want to add those 10 people to PostHog. You don't want to make a for loop, so it's gonna be easy for the user like that. Hope
So
that,
n8n will automatically understand. Okay,
yeah,
n number
automatically.
of items came from the previous node, so act on all of them one by one.
Yeah,
So
it will
the user
iterate.
doesn't have to do for loops.
Yeah, it will iterate automatically.
Got it.
The Actually, that one was the first thing that I thought was like magic because I thought at the beginning that actually I was looking for a for loop node. I thought I had to do a for loop every time I want to iterate over a bunch of items. No, I mean n8n does it for you. It's really good because it keeps the workflows really small.
Perfect. And here then we can do an like conditional logic on the resource and the operation that people have selected. So resource event, operation create, then that's the action the node is going to take behind the scenes.
Yeah, that's correct. Right now, yeah, here we're getting the resource. Currently, there's just one, so probably this is gonna take the event, and this is gonna take create. Yeah, round we're gonna get all the parameters right here in order to send them to the API using the same function. We just have it's just get no parameters, and you put the name that you define right here. Then you have access to that data.
Perfect. Let's do it.
Okay.
And here, unlike the resources and operation, you mentioned I because it goes in the for loop. So get all the pieces of data and iterate over them.
Yeah, that's correct.
Perfect.
So yeah, this is pretty much.
Which is great because if you, let's say, I don't know, have uh, a billion or 10 million items coming through, you just create three node workflow and like
Yeah,
have it
and it will
run
automatically connect to
automatically.
all of them. Yeah.
Perfect.
What's the name of the
Which
primary?
significantly speeds up the dev time as well. Like if you are creating backends or things for reporting, it's way quicker to set this up as compared to set all that up. So almost like creating packages for a programming language because you create this node once and everybody else can then use it in their n8n instances. They don't have to write code for connecting to PostHog again.
Yeah, that's 100% correct.
Awesome.
Okay, we have event name, distinct ID, and now we need the properties.
I can see how creating nodes for n8n is addictive.
Oh yeah, when you see them all working, you just want to keep doing it. Yes. Yeah, because this might be empty.
Ricardo, how did you get started with this process of node development? Because like you were one of the early adopters, like you came in very early. So how did you learn all this? What was your
Uh,
approach?
I just saw what Jan had done with the other nodes, and I just started, trying, testing until everything worked out. Now,
Awesome.
Jan also was pretty responsive, to be honest. So that's one of the reasons why I took the project. I keep contributing because if I had any question, we didn't have that much documentation back then. If I had any question, he would quickly answer to me. So
Yeah, Jan is our founder and CEO, and like, also the creator of n8n, and he is still really active on the community. Like if there's any questions, uh, they always get answered very quick, and it's also really cool to see. I think Ricardo got a lot of knowledge from him, and then Ricardo is also now mentoring everybody else in the company, and we call him Sensei Ricardo.
yeah, I mean, the first node that I developed, the Mandarin node, it was terrible. Just because I put all the fields using a string, I didn't have that. We have more than a string as UI elements, and then Jan told me, "Oh, you can use fixed collections." Oh, I see. Okay, we have this. We have the body.
Okay, so looking at the
Yeah, we have.
sample
Mhm. Go ahead.
sample query, you already got the event name here. API key is being sent from the generic functions.ts file. Properties we have here, distinct ID we have here, and body. I think timestamp is one of the other things,
Oh yeah, that's correct. That's in the
and body is okay. This is going to be the body of the post request.
additional fields.
So how do we handle time in n8n? So I saw that we have a date time UI element which opens
Mhm.
up this nice calendar pop up. Um, how does that? How does n8n handle that the input that comes from that UI element?
Uh, it is format as UTC. In a bit, I'm gonna print it, and you will see. Actually, I think it's using moment under the hood, so it's just an instant the moment that is formatted. So,
Cool.
uh, okay, I forgot the name of the how to send the parameters. I know the one is properties. I know that we have how is it called the event name?
Event.
Okay, that's what I was told you. That doesn't matter how you put the fields in the UI. You can always map right here before sending the request. I mean, in the UI it's called event name, but then I can set it in the body as an event.
Perfect.
Uh,
And then we have timestamp outside as well.
yes, but that's under additional field. So we have to do if uh,
So only at this if that field is set.
yeah, that's correct because since it's optional, if it is not set, we don't want to add it to the body. But you also know that that field has a specific format, right?
The timestamp field.
Yes.
Let's take a look. So yeah, it does say optional timestamp in ISO 8601 format. Um, I am very curious to know what that is. Okay, so that is EO for YYY hyphen MM hyphen
Yeah,
DD.
I think that I'm gonna use Moment. You can always import that library uh, within a node because we use it internally. So probably Moment is gonna be helpful to parse the data to that format.
Perfect. Back to you. So n8n already imports a lot of useful packages for node development, like request. Because I saw in generic TS you're using the request library. Here we can use Moment. So uh, if you are looking to maybe create some functionality, take a look if n8n already has that. And Ricardo, the best place to look for that is in package.json
Yeah, that's
in
correct.
in the node space folder.
Yeah, that's correct. There you can see all the oops all the node packages, npm packages that you have access to.
Perfect. So before adding your own, maybe take a look if n8n already has something like that, so we don't bloat up the repository and the dependencies.
Yeah, correct. Okay, oops. Here is this thing. Okay, how is this? Is this? Ah, oops.
So let
It
me
is
share my
it
screen.
is like this, right?
It's distinct underscore ID. Yeah,
Okay,
perfect.
got it. Okay, so this is not here. This is here. This is would be
Timestamp.
yeah. Thanks. Oops. Just map it to the right formats. And here we use disconnected.
And why have we not defined it inside the body object? Because it's a part of properties. Okay, that's fair.
Yeah. So yeah, the only tricky thing here is we have to map an array of key values to just one object. I think I have done that before, so I'm not gonna start from
We have a message from Chris. Thanks for n8n masterclass, learning so much. Thank you, Sensei Ricardo, for this.
oh really cool.
And thanks for joining us, Chris.
Okay, I'm gonna copy this because I did it before, but this is literally mapping uh, the data to something the API, the PostHog API understand. I'm nothing crazy here. Properties here should be key. Here should be value, and then okay. Now we have all the parameters, and we have them in the format that we want. And now we have to make the actual HTTP request. Uh,
And we reach out to the method that we have in the
yeah,
generate.
yeah, the one that we just imported. This one.
Perfect.
See, okay, goes to this here. Where? Oops. Mm, the first parameter is a method. We're gonna send a post. Second parameter is the path, which is I don't remember. Can you share with me?
So first parameter was, okay,
No,
so
the
let me
path.
share my screen. So it is capture
Oh, okay, gotcha.
the endpoint. So
And the
because the
third
first part
parameter,
of the URL is being defined in
yeah,
generic functions itself. Okay.
yeah, that's correct. And the third parameter is the body.
Body we have formed in this file.
Yeah, exactly. And to be honest, I think we should be all set. This is not needed.
Awesome. So now we execute the node and it's gonna
Yeah,
populate data in a dashboard, PostHog.
yeah. But Tana, you know what? Send me for private your credentials so you can share your dashboard because
Let's do that. Give me a sec. There we go. So URL would remain the same since we are both on.
yeah, can you switch screens while I add the new credentials?
Oh yeah, let's do that. Oh no,
What happened?
I have it on live stream. Okay, let me
I
see.
guess we can delete them later. So.
Okay,
Mm,
so I am gonna generate a new API key. Here, Ricardo. Okay, sorry, my screen froze. So, okay, so we are gonna generate a new one using the same method. So it's nice. It's a quick administration within PostHog as well. If you accidentally expose your API key on a live stream like me, it's easy to yeah, fix that. Okay, so I've
is the
deleted my
one
previous one and sent
question?
a new one
Is
to
the
you
one?
one.
Oh, I got it. Got it. Got it.
Okay,
Okay, I'm gonna let you
remember
know.
to change my screen this time. Should I share my screen? Or let's look at your
Uh,
screen now.
yeah, you can
Or are
see.
you
I already added them, so let's see how it goes.
okay? So now we are looking at Ricardo's screen. So you have added my API key.
Yeah, I just did.
Okay.
They're right here. Now let's create another name. I don't know, n8n testing, an ID. I guess this is the user ID and can be whatever. So let's do testing in the meantime. Let's do what happened. Okay, that didn't go quite as expected, but let's see what is happening.
So 403, what does that mean?
Let me see. Give me a
Access to the
second.
requested resource is forbidden.
Maybe I didn't save the credentials. Let me see.
Okay,
Can you?
let me take you off
Yeah,
the.
wait a second just to make sure that I have the right credentials. Okay.
I was too quick.
Oh yeah, give me a second. I will leave.
Sure. Okay, so meanwhile, while Ricardo
Yeah, but I guess
As
this is if you develop a node and the first time you hit the the, the HTTP request successful, then you are the man.
yeah, that's like a occasion to pop the bottle of champagne,
Oh, okay, I got the issue. Okay, wait a second.
of course. So yeah, and I have like a default dashboard when I logged into.
It is weird, Tanay, because it's telling me that the API key is invalid.
Let's look at your screen.
Oh,
Okay, okay. Let me check what's going on there.
but
Let me send it to you again.
okay.
I wonder if it takes a while for their API keys to be active.
I shouldn't, to be honest.
Okay, I'm gonna.
I'm still exposing my API key, but I can delete it later.
So
Yeah, give me. Okay. Perhaps this is the first one that you shared with me. Did you just create another one? I know it's the same one, right?
um okay, how does it start for you? The API key? It
It ends
starts
on
with,
K.
sorry?
It ends on K.
Ends in K. That's correct. Maybe do you want to show it on your dash with your
Yeah,
API
that's
key?
what I'm gonna do because yeah. Give me a second. Let me set up the because I already have one.
So let's take a look at while Ricardo is figuring that out. Let's take a look at PostHog. So we have a default dashboard which it says my app dashboard, and okay, I'm just gonna refresh this page. Okay, I see we have a dashboard number here, and there is no data because we haven't sent anything to it yet. So it seems like we can also create a custom graphs here, and see, we have events here, which is perfect because I think this is the endpoint we'd be actually sending it through to. And we have actions, event stats.
Mm, it's-
Any luck, Ricardo?
no, give me a second.
Do you think is it because we are sending the API key in body? Do you think that might
Oh no,
be?
no, I don't think that's the case.
No. Okay. So I'm gonna share your screen now so we can
Yeah.
help debug with you.
Okay. Yeah, I'm trying to boot the docs to see maybe I'm sending a parameter different.
Okay, so we have the content type set. Okay, if anybody spots what we are doing wrong, please send a message in the chat. Always helpful. So with the distinct ID, it says your user's distinct ID, but I think that's not an issue, right?
No. Mm, think, think, think. Okay, don't tell me that. Okay, give me a second, NT. No, it's capture. It is a pose.
So you added a console.log here to debug.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I will delete that API key later.
That's
Either way,
fine.
that's not working. So, and method policies maybe. Come on, come on.
So I
Mm,
see we have API key, we have event, um,
yeah,
properties,
maybe they
distinct
have two
ID.
types. I wonder if they have two types of API keys or something because it's telling me the
Oh,
project
do you
API.
think it's because we haven't entered a key value pair? Because those aren't optional.
Let's see, perhaps. No, that's not the case.
Oh, okay.
Okay, go to settings. Oops, 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 oops. Yeah, fuck what I mean, yeah. And there is nothing that I can do now. Projects. Ah, God, it's different. The personal API key than your project API key.
Ah, I see.
Yeah, that's why. Oops.
Um,
Yeah, voila.
Although if you look on their document for the post-only public endpoints, it says on the top, update. These endpoints can be accessed with either your team API key or personal API key.
But that doesn't seem to be the case. It just work with the project API, but not with the personal API.
But it also says for this API, you should use your team API key from the project settings page.
Ah,
Um,
gotcha. Yeah, yeah. I guess we made a mistake there.
so maybe
Okay.
the personal API key is for something else.
Yeah, probably. So if you go to events, you can see here the event, and even with the key pair that we set.
Cool. So should I send you my project ID so we can see?
Of course.
Okay, so how? So project. Let me share my screen. How do we get the project ID?
Okay, let me tell you real quick. It's on the left menu under projects.
Okay, default project. Okay, let me send this over to you. There you go. This would show up in my dashboard, I think. Okay, so
Yeah,
we have
it should.
0 right now.
Okay, you just send it, right?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, if I go here, then update this, save, and then hit.
I can see Ricardo's screen right now. I see he
Oh,
saved.
yeah, you can,
No,
yeah, the
let's,
refresh.
okay, let's refresh. No, nothing yet. Or do you think
It's
it's.
under events. Yeah, it's under events.
Ah, okay, of course, because we sent it to an event. And we have it. We have the timestamp and the data that you entered. So distinct ID, you said testing, and these are the key value pairs. And I also have your IP address.
Yeah, that's
That's
added by
awesome.
by them. Yeah.
Perfect. So can you see maybe how this would look like if somebody is using PostHog with, let's say, maybe we can do is we can add an interval node which like triggers the workflow every second. We can have a set node to specify um, some key value, or actually we don't even need a set node. We could have a
Yeah,
random number being generated in
yeah,
expressions.
that's correct. So let's do that. You wanna do a cron?
Yeah, let's do cron. Can cron trigger per second with custom, I think.
Yeah. Yes, let's trigger this every minute, and
Maybe
then
we can do with interval because with that you can trigger every second.
okay.
I guess you can do that with cron as well if you use the custom cron expressions, but quicker this way, I guess.
Okay, one every second. This is gonna be called. Hopefully, we don't hit the right limit. So we update the workflow, and then this should be you should be getting
Gonna share my screen
more
now.
messages. Yes.
Oh, there's one event. Click here to load it. It's and yeah, it's sending data every second basically. So this is quite useful. So let's say Oh, wow. Okay, yeah. Let's deactivate the workflow before we hit the API limit. But
Yeah,
no, this is quite useful. I think what we could be done is we could be getting data, let's say, from an IoT device. Like, I mean, how awesome are IoT devices? We could get data like temperature, pressure, and stuff. Maybe send it to MQTT. It's getting sent from the device to a queue, and it then catches that data with the MQTT trigger. Like we now also have Kafka and so on, and then it pushes to PostHog, so you can really visualize the data that's coming in nicely.
yeah, that's correct. That's correct.
This is really cool. Yeah, this is awesome. So we're gonna hang out for 5 more minutes, unless there's something else. So like, if you have any questions, please comment, and we'd be happy to answer anything.
Yeah, I
And I'm
just
gonna share Ricardo's screen to see the awesome workflow that we just built. And Ricardo, are you gonna send now a PR to the code base so that
oh yeah, yeah, probably.
we
We're
can
gonna
probably
add a couple more operations. Probably get all day and delete, and that should be probably released on Monday. So you're gonna be able to use it.
awesome. That's quick. I can see how this is really addictive.
Okay,
And
just when developing nodes, one warning: be careful because it's really addictive. And Tanay can tell you that that's true because he have developed Python already.
yeah, it's just really fun. I think like it's almost like developing packages for, I don't know. I used to be a Python programmer earlier. It's like developing packages for that because okay, you created once, and it's just so rewarding seeing people use the nodes that you created in workflows, enabling so many different things. That's really awesome. Yeah. What was the last node that you created, Ricardo, before
Mm,
Postgres?
that's a good question. Yesterday, I think it was. I mean, that I made changes to the demo that you were working on. I think that
Right.
was yesterday.
Yeah, I think like that's a good note as well. So we just for some context, what we did was we are planning to do some webinars in the next weeks. So we're gonna be using Demio for that, and they have a REST API, which is awesome. So we also created a node for that to just get some details from there and do some registrations. Okay, so I see a couple of questions from Chris. First question is, do you have a good tutorial on how to do the initial setup?
Yeah,
So I
right
can,
now right now we have in the one of the GitHub repos there is the steps that you need to follow to set up the. Perhaps you can share that on it.
yes. Chris, also just for context, we are also, Ricardo and I are working on a tutorial on how to create your first node. So I estimate we'd probably have somewhere in mid next week a new page in documentation like detailing how you can create your first node. So everything we did today distilled down. But till then, we have contributing.md. So it has some information on setting up your dev cycle or dev tooling. So, clone the repo, go into the folder, do a Lerna bootstrap, npm run build, and so on. So this is how like you can follow till now on how to set it up initially uh, for development. And if you're using Mac, you'll have to do xcode select hyphen hyphen install. So that installs like Git for you. That installs a couple of things, right? Um, so that's going to be useful. And how next question is from Chris: how to install Lerna on a Mac. So I saw this recently from the tutorial that Ricardo is working on. So if you have npm installed already, you can install it by doing npm install hyphen hyphen global learner. So that will help you install learner, and then you will be able to do the initial bootstrap hoist. Let's add it here. And we have final question from Chris: how to run dev mode. So I think the contributing.md has information on running this dev mode. So it's npm run dev. So I think maybe Ricardo, you can tell us a bit about when do we. So from what I understood is initially we did Lerna Bootstrap, then we
Mhm.
did npm run build, npm run start for the first time. So unless we add a new package like I don't know, Moment.js or something, we don't need to do Lerna Bootstrap twice, or
Yeah,
unless
that's
you're
correct.
changing branches. Um, you only have to do that once, and after that you can. When do we have to do npm run build? Like if there's any changes,
Just the first time, because
just the
when
first time.
you, yeah, I mean npm build is just transpiling the code, but when you do npm run dev, you npm run dev is watching all the files, and every time a save is made, then it change transpile all those files automatically. We have to sadly restart the server, so the UI notes that there were some changes on the nodes. But everything you change on the execute function, it's okay. You do not have to kill the process and run it again. But everything you change on the I mean everything that is under properties, then you have to run npm run dev again.
Got it. Got it. Hope that answers your question, Chris. We're gonna stay online for maybe 2 more minutes, Ricardo, in case there's any more questions. And yeah, okay. Chris says he gets it. Um, Perfect. And yeah, next week we'll have this guide coming on. So I think we'll announce that on Twitter, I think. So we have that in the docs. We also have a reference for different data types. So if there's a string, if there's a, you need to use date time, maybe something like a fixed collection, and you don't quite yet know like what are the different types, we'll have a reference. So you can see, okay, it looks like this and I want that in my node. So you can copy the code there and explore a bit more.
That's good.
Awesome. Thanks, Chris, for joining, and thank you everybody for tuning in. This was really fun, and yeah, I hope this was helpful. And thanks a lot, Ricardo, for showing us how to
Of
create
course,
nodes.
of course.
We hope to be building more of these based on this, and yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Yeah,
Thanks a lot.
I really enjoyed. I mean, we had some technical difficulties at the beginning, but in general, I really enjoyed.
Yeah, yeah.
So looking
It would
forward.
be weird if there would be no technical difficulties like that. Those always pop up on
Yes,
live streams, I
more or
think.
less.
It's gotta happen. Okay.
Okay,
All right. Thank you, everyone. This was a lot of fun and hope to do this soon again. And have a nice evening or have a nice day wherever you are.
okay,
Bye.
okay, guys. Bye.